I think you are a great guy. I think you're so sweet. Marshall, I can't love you because I'm attracted to Josh. I just saw Josh, and there is some chemistry.
Now, the age-old question, do good guys finish last?
Bad boys for life.
I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I'm gonna give you my 2 cents. I'm gonna say yes. But the question is finishing last always a bad thing? Now, on season 4 of Love is Blind, there's a couple, Jackie and Marshall, which exemplifies the perfect example of the good guy not getting what he deserves and the bad guy getting the girl. So let's get into it. So Jackie and Marshall seemed to not be on the same page romantically. When they were in the pods, he was more open with his emotions. She was kind of average, but she was also interested in another guy named Josh. Now, Josh looks like the quintessential bad boy. You know, he even had the cauliflower ear, and I work with some MMA fighters, so I immediately said he must be a wrestler or MMA, and it turns out he was a wrestler. So you can understand he's a little more of the traditional masculine role, aggressive, macho, while Marshall is more nicer, cool, loving. And if you think about a relationship, isn't that what you want? The traits that Marshall had?
Marshall is too sensitive for me, basically. That was the first time I ever had somebody like love me and like show me and really like translate that to me. I never had that before. I wanted to keep that.
But let's be real. Some people want that stimulation. Obviously, the thing that makes you feel at home may not be where the heart is. So you can look at how this kind of went awry later down in the season because Marshall and Jackie would agree to get engaged. Now, the first tidbits of it showed when she was saying to him more so, she doesn't know if she'll be able to be herself and not let that creep back in. And it seemed as if those traits or behaviors probably weren't the best, and that should have been a sign right there. But Marshall seems to be very agreeable, and we talked about that on this channel. Agreeableness, people who are agreeable tend to not butt heads. They tend to go with the flow. They're understanding. They're open to other people's opinions, which is a great trait for a romantic relationship. We'll talk more about this. But basically, hearing someone say that should not be a sign that, hey, this is going to work. Doesn't mean you just throw away the whole relationship, but you should have to take into consideration that if they have some traits that they feel will hinder the relationship, they need to put it out there and address it. But Jackie continued to say, you know what, we'll work through it. But you saw the butting of the heads continue as fights would start. She would pick arguments. And you can see, we talked about this in the other video about self-sabotage with Farina and Zach, but that would show up in this relationship too. But to get to my point of bad boys, nice guys finishing last, we'll have to get to when they finally met the other participants. So Jackie would go on to meet Josh, and he would aggressively go up to her and tell her she made a mistake. Josh was being loud with everyone. He went up to Marshall, even said, hey, I'm Mr. Steal Your Girl. But nah, it's just joking. But he was patronizing him, and it was very apparent, and Marshall knew it.
You too cool for school.
You were gonna talk to the NBA cry boy. If you truly think you're gonna go walk up and talk to Marshall and be like, yo, I do, then fuck it. But you don't feel like heart to heart, you're really gonna marry Marshall? Pick me.
So the whole point is he's coming off as the quintessential bad boy, plays by his own rules, does his own thing. And Jackie seemed kind of interested. And later on, they would even go on a date, basically, pretty much. He would confess more of his feelings, and she would make the decision to leave Marshall. Now, granted, it's probably good because they did not seem like a fit, and she probably was gonna hurt him. But it just shows you, him being a nice guy, the traits that made her feel good, say that she loves him, didn't really do it for her. But when the guy came in who wasn't really open, and she would even address that he wasn't that open. But the point is, why do they go for the bad boys? So Titus Shiro, I talk about him a lot on this channel, and I actually did an interview with him on my other channel, my Mental Muscle podcast. We talked a little about romantic relationships, amongst other things, but he talks a lot about something called novelty seeking. This is a trait that is for people who want to try new experiences, be more adventurous, things that get you that thrill, that rush, that adrenaline pump. Now, the problem with this is at a moderate level, it's good because you want to have new experiences. You want to keep the relationship interesting. But if it's too high, guess what? Novelty means new experiences. If you're seeking it, eventually you're going to seek elsewhere. You can see where I'm going with this. So someone who's high on novelty seeking typically is not going to want to be locked down, whether it's a relationship, whether it be a job. They just want to go try different things. You can see that presented with Jackie. And Josh, he kind of alludes to that because he's the more irrational choice, because she knows Marshall is predictable. She knows he's consistent. So therefore, if she goes with him, that novelty seeking in that degree won't be that great for him, but it'll be great for her with Josh.
I liked you. I'm like, look, just give me something. Give me that feeling that everyone says you know when you know. And I didn't have that feeling, and I tried every time to have that feeling.
Also, Josh seemed to be high on extroversion. Bad boys typically are more outgoing, more socially adaptable. And this is what makes them attractive to women, because who wants the person who's in the corner slumped over? They want to see the life of the party. And as you saw when they all were together at Chelsea's birthday party, he was loud, making a lot of noise. You could hear his voice everywhere. And this gets you excited because you think, oh, if he can be the life of the party, he's socially adaptable, this is something I can get along with, and he can give me more. But that's in a very limited sense. Because when you think about long-term relationships, if you get married, say 20, 30, 40, 50 years, depending on how old you are, you're going at least 20, 30 years. And at best, if you live a long life, 40, 50 years. So that's a long time to be with someone. And like we mentioned, someone high on novelty seeking, that's pretty scary. But if you have the idea of that this person can keep me entertained, keep me active, you're probably gonna want them. But the problem is that's fleeting, one, so they're not always gonna be that. And even if they could be, eventually that's not gonna be enough to keep a consistent relationship satisfying. That's the key word, relationship satisfaction. That's what we should look for. A lot of people look for happiness. Everyone wants to be happy, but happiness is a fleeting emotion. But what Dr. Tashiro talks about is relationship satisfaction, and agreeableness. Remember, I talked about that with Marshall, is one of the biggest predictors. This is because imagine if you're dating someone or even married, obviously in this situation, you're going to have compromise. Someone who's low on agreeableness or more disagreeable, these are typically the bad boys. They do their own thing. They're looking for the next action. They're more out there, outgoing. They're probably not going to want to hear, hey, come home, settle down, let's just chill tonight, or let's do something more deeper in thought versus something that's going to get us active. Because like I said, that's good in the moment, but relationship, a marriage, is lots of moments. So on paper, Marshall made the more sense because he's more agreeable. He's more rationally thinking, hey, long-term, what are we going to do? Also, agreeable people are typically better sexual partners for the most part. That's not a one-size-fits-all rule, but the reasoning for this is if you're agreeable, you're going to try to satisfy the other person because agreeable people like to appease both sides. So if you look at someone like a bad boy, he probably want his needs met. He might give you some fun, exciting action, but how long before you feel like, hey, I'm the only one putting in work. I'm not getting as much as I want. She even mentioned to Marshall, she wants him to be more aggressive in bed, choke or slap her around. And that can allude to a whole nother topic, because I personally believe if you want that, that's nothing against it, but it alludes to something else going on with how you've been treated in romantic or just interpersonal relationships. So you can see how all this put together, Marshall did not fit in that box for what Jackie wanted. So you can see good guys finishing last, I think is pretty much true, but it's not a bad thing because guess what? If you look at it like sports analogies, I'm big on that. I'm a sports psychology guy. A race, sometimes you have to last longer in the race, say a marathon, because if it's a sprint, that's the bad boy. They're going to sprint. They'll get there quicker. They're going to make you feel good. It's going to be fun, rah, rah. Then it fades. Look at the record holders for sprint events, how long they last. They get broken all the time. But look at the record holders for long distance. They usually last decades because it takes more work to hold and withstand and build up. It's more usage, so you might get injured. And the same thing in romance, right? Look at it like that. Do you want the person who's going to sprint out, make you feel good, celebrate, and then there's nothing, or they just never reach that point again? Or the person who's going to have to build up, take their time, stay consistent for the long run, and then make you feel good for the rest of your life? Think about it. Which one would you want? So is good guys finishing last really a bad thing? You let me know. Thanks, guys, as always, for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, get your mind right.